Welcome back to MomShine, the podcast where we explore real, practical ways to parent with more joy, balance, and serenity. As a busy mom of a preschooler, elementary kiddo, and middle schooler, my day typically starts around 6:30, where I try to hit snooze as much as I can, then turn on the news, grab my cups of coffee, get the kids up, make breakfast, make lunches, check their backpacks, lay out their clothes, and then rush them into the car and shuttle out to their carpool. Then I see if I perhaps can get a little moment of peace before the flurry of emails come into my inbox and the rest of the day begins. Sound familiar? Turns out this is a typical day for moms here in the US, and parenting has often been described as a feeling like a pressure cooker, full of rigid routines, burnout, and the model parent philosophy that gives us all the imposter syndrome of endless guilt, like we're not doing enough. But what if I told you across the pond there's a peaceful European country with a radically different approach? In fact, it's a calmer, looser, yet more connected approach. Today, I'm taking you on a little trip to Sweden. Unlike the US, parenting doesn't feel like so much of a pressure cooker over there, full of rigid routines, burnout, and judgment. In fact, they have a radically different approach. It's calmer, looser, kids are given a lot more independence, and yet the whole community is more connected. What if fewer rules didn't mean more chaos? It actually meant more trust. And what if independence wasn't something you had to force, but something your child naturally grew into? And what if screen time wasn't the enemy, but actually a mirror for how kids were feeling? Today's guest, Emma Lundwall, is here to show us how Swedish parenting redefines everything we've come to expect about raising kids. It's energy over rules. You can let go of the power struggles, and it's more about community care into everyday life. Emma brings a global perspective, having raised kids in multiple countries. Her Swedish parenting philosophy has garnered over 1 million views on Instagram, and it's something every mom on the line needs to hear. But some spoilers before we dive in that frankly blew my mind is, did you know that in Sweden, there's no concept of a stay-at-home mom? That's because the entire system is designed for work-life balance. Imagine parenting in a country where every dad is expected to share the load. Not because it's trendy, it's because the law supports it. The Sweden Parental Leave Act offers 480 days of paid leave per child. Yes, you heard that right. It allows parents to split time and responsibilities based on what's best for their family and what each family needs. And that time off is not just offered, it's culturally expected and socially supported. Sounds like a dream, right? I can't wait to dive in and welcome Emma to MomShine. Today's guest, Emma Lundwall, is here to show us how Swedish parenting redefines everything we've come to expect about our kids, from letting go of power struggles to building community into our daily life. I love that. Emma's perspective might shift how every parent thinks about the way they parent forever. So I'm excited to throw the rule book out, Emma, and welcome to MomShine.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So first things first, I want to get started by telling all of our guests more about your background. So obviously you're from Sweden. Like, tell me about how you got into this line of work, and we got in touch because you said everyone is kind of gravitating, and the messages that you're putting out around Swedish parenting are really resonating for parents here in the US. And I feel like after a long weekend, I can't wait to dive in and hear about it.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I'm happy to have this conversation with you. And I'm a Swedish mom of 4. I live in New York. I have a background in behavioral science. I'm a certified health coach and a life coach. and I'm very passionate about holistic wellness and mindful living. And I was born and raised in Sweden, and since then I've lived in 6 different countries on 4 different continents, and I now live here in the US. And I think what's always stuck with me is I've been parenting kind of the way that I was raised myself. So probably even doing it without thinking too much about it, because it was always like second nature to me. And it wasn't until I started sharing something about it, I posted a reel that all of a sudden got over 1 million views and so many shares. And there was a lot of interest in something that was very natural to me. So that just made me more interested in exploring the differences and just sharing a bit more about our way or my way of doing it.
Amazing. What was the reel about that resonated with so many moms?
Yeah, so I shared how I parent as a Swedish mom in the US, and I shared like 10 differences that I've seen. And I guess if you want me to mention a few of them, the first thing
Yes.
that really stood out was that we've talked about as well before was the independence part, about fostering independence early. And I think that was a lot of but most the American parents that were in touch with me were asking more about, because that was the part that they were struggling with the most. I mean, for many different reasons. Obviously, there's a lot of societal differences and differences in just how society is set up here. But I think that's definitely something that's doable, no matter where you're living. But the main difference for us was, like in Sweden, kids are encouraged to walk to school from a very early age. They are encouraged to manage their time, like their schedules, much earlier, to take on responsibilities. Obviously, age-appropriate responsibilities, but they're trusted more to take,
Yes.
to be more independent and to be allowed to be a bit more grown up maybe than they are. So yeah, taking public transport alone, but walking everywhere without parental like supervision. So that was a big difference for sure.
So more independent sooner. And for a lot of us, I'm sure raised by boomers, like we had so much more independence, I feel like, in the US than exists today. We're so fear-based in how we parent. So you have 4 kids. Did you parent some of them in Sweden and then come to the US? And tell our listeners a little bit about like what you noticed
Yeah,
about those differences right away.
definitely. So my husband is also Swedish, which I think has helped us a lot, because we do share the same background and the same kind of values when it comes to raising kids in general. So that has helped us for sure. My first one, my oldest is 17. He was born when we lived in Sydney in Australia, so that was not in Sweden. And then my second was born in Singapore, which was again very different. And then we lived
Wow.
in Switzerland for a few years, and then I have 2 like New York, Manhattan babies. But the thing that stuck with me was I was still carrying with me like my Swedish values or the Scandinavian kind of parenting style throughout all of this. And I think that even grew stronger for me because I wasn't living in Sweden, but I was very much taking things from my own childhood, the way I was brought up, and bringing that into our home. So I think living abroad has actually helped me even like staying even stronger to those values and those systems, if you will.
Yeah. And did you kind of feel like you were bumping against another system and parents that weren't raising their kids the same?
At
Did you kind of
times,
feel that?
At times, for sure. I mean, Australia is maybe a little bit more similar. It's pretty laid back,
Yep.
and so the culture is a little bit similar. I would say Singapore in Asia was very different. It was much more like more discipline, and it was just a very, like early academics instead of play-based learning, etc. So that was different. But my kids were quite little. When we lived in Switzerland, I feel like that was quite similar in terms of encouraging the early independence. Like kids are encouraged. You're not even allowed to walk your kids to school from age, I think it's age 4 or 5, like early kindergarten. You're not even allowed as a parent to walk your kids to school. So
Wow.
they really forced that upon you. So that was almost like a shock to me because my kids still felt quite young to me. But yeah, so that was also a learning curve. But then coming to the US, I think I noticed the biggest differences culturally coming here. And I'm not saying that one way is better than the other, it's just different.
Right. It's just different. And I want to dive into the 10 principles. We're going to talk a lot about independence first.
Yeah.
How do you feel like parents in the US can start fostering independence earlier with our kids? And kind of, I feel like a lot of us are like, am I a helicopter parents? Like,
Yeah,
what is the right balance? Like, what would you
definitely. I mean, I would
say
say
to parents?
yes, I would say start small. So to foster independence, I would say let kids try before helping. I think we're so well-meaning, but I think we definitely they don't even get a chance to have a go at things. So even from a very young age, try to practice more patience and allow them to try before helping, and also really try to give more age appropriate responsibilities. Like even out in nature, like if you're out on the weekend, maybe, is it safe maybe with you watching if they can use a knife to carve something, carve some wood, or like if you're cutting up some vegetables or fruit, can they use the plastic knife? Like you just encourage them
Yes.
to help out more.
It's very like kind of Montessori based in some of those things, like having them
Yeah.
pour their own stuff. I have those plastic knives that are safe that
Yeah.
littles can use to kind of do their own thing. So instead of jumping in right away, we can kind of take a step back, which I'm sure a lot of moms on the line are like, yes,
Yeah,
I'm going to try to do
definitely.
that more.
Exactly. Everyone wins, it's yeah, to give some energy back to you as well. So yeah, but it teaches them so much, that so many much needed life skills to be given that responsibility from an early age, and setting them up for future life, in a much healthier, better way, I think.
Totally. And then the other principle I think you talk about
Yeah.
is the power struggles or
Yeah.
overpraise. Like
Yeah.
you don't do any of that, the power struggles or the
Yes.
overpraise in your method of parenting. So share with moms on the line why that approach works better for kids.
Yeah, I feel like, well, with the power struggles, I feel like it's just wasted energy for everyone. That's not fun for the mom, that's not fun for the kids. So I feel
Yep.
that's definitely wasted energy if you can avoid it. I feel also with the overpraise, I feel it provides a lot of external validation, which I try to avoid instead. I mean, to just, instead of seeing like praising the effort or the participation, like to build resilience that way, instead of just like focusing on the results, has been a big thing for us. And I've always been even.
Basically, it's praising the struggle, right? Am I understanding that right? It's kind of like, good job for getting out there, like not overpraising when it's like stuff they're supposed to be doing. Is that right?
Yeah, or even just like noticing their participation. So like talk about how did you enjoy that game, instead of like did you win? Or asking,
Yeah.
or like when they show you a picture that they drew in school, like say like, okay, tell me about this picture. Like like explain, what is this rainbow thing doing? Or instead of saying, oh, I love your picture, that's so beautiful. Like, so instead of giving that, because then they'll just set them up for like needing someone else to constantly reaffirm them, or like give them
Totally.
validation. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like in anything, just like, okay, instead of saying like great job, maybe saying like, okay, tell me like what was the most fun part about your day, or like what part of the game did you enjoy the most and why, like, so show interest. And I think
Yes.
that's going to build, like, that's going to open up such a more, in a much more interesting conversation than just like, okay, did you score a goal, or like who scored or who won, and it's, or like what
It's
did you do in the
so
test. Yeah.
it's so hard as a parent not to share your opinion. So
Yeah.
to me, I'm hearing like come more curious instead of
Yeah.
telling them what you think, right? It's so important to build those muscles in your kid, and it's really not easy to do.
Yeah.
Our reflexes
Definitely.
as a parent are to like project a little
Yes.
bit.
Yeah. And there's no way they're not going to know what you're feeling about things anyway. So that's still going to come through. So I don't feel like that's something you need to lead with, because of course that's going to be expressed in other ways anyway. And they're going to pick up on that because kids are so sensitive and perceptive to their parents. So I think that's going to come out anyway. It's not necessarily something you need to lead with. So I love that
Yes.
what you said about the curiosity.
Curiosity. And this is like a really good shift into energy because you
Mhm.
talk a lot about energy over rules. And I
Yeah.
don't know about other moms on the line. I get so fatigued on the
Yeah.
rule holding and the boundary work. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't feel in control of your kids at all, but
Mhm.
tell our listeners and other moms how your energy is actually what's more important than
Yeah.
rules and control. And I can't wait to dive into that.
Yeah, this is something I'm so passionate about. And I feel this is what has created the most like balance and harmony within our home. And just about leading with your energy, and just, because obviously no stress, no battles. I feel like the less I stress, the less my kids push back. And I feel it's so important if you can focus on yourself and your energy, kids don't really necessarily follow rules, but they do follow the energy. I mean, you can tell, like, if mom's happy, kids are happy. Like, if you can just focus on yourself and try and on your own time, like, use your mindfulness practices or your meditation or your walks or your time out with friends to balance out yourself first. That's going to, have such an impact on your parenting, and kids will follow that for sure without you even having to say anything or get into those power struggles.
I love that line, no stress, no battles. Can we talk through an example, if you have one, top of mind, of like when a mom might be high stress? I can think of a million off the top of my head, but where sometimes I need to take a minute and think about how I want to parent. I don't know, my kids are always fighting over toys. They're playing nicely, but there's also moments where they're not being kind. They're not using, especially my young one, using words the way I want him to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an example you could walk a mom through?
What I'm thinking of is definitely something that like is a mantra of mine, and that is like connection first. Because I feel like when I go back to that, no matter what the topic like of the day is that they're fighting about or we're annoyed with, I feel like when kids feel seen and heard, there's going to be less battles. So there's always a reason. Like if my older kid it's hitting his brother, there's always a reason for that within him, right? So
Yeah.
try and really, because the more like open communication, the more respect, like the more we show our kids respect by actually listening to them and taking that time, even though we're like in the middle of dinner or we just got home or everyone's tired. But I think everyone wins if you can just take that time for connection first. So many of the battles can be avoided by you just like by the kid just feeling like seen or heard. Maybe something will come up. Maybe they'll tell you about something that happened to them in school, and that's probably the reason why they're behaving in a certain way at home. So if you can focus on the connection first, and make them feel seen and heard, I feel like there's going to be less battles regardless of what the subject of the day is.
That does always help. And I think taking the time to understand where they're coming from, which sometimes is so hard. Half the time it's like, my son is hangry.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes.
He needs to take a moment and feed himself and regroup and come back when he's ready. The other one that's a really big one that I'm sure parents on the line might be able to relate to is screen time. There's always a little bit of a battle around, especially with the dangers of screen time for young kids, and the fact that we're kind of finding out that it wasn't super regulated for them. I think maybe some measures are being put in place now, but I'm always trying to protect my kids from like seeing the wrong thing on YouTube that they can't unsee. So tell parents how to eliminate the screen time battle, because I loved your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so passionate about this. I have so much to say about this because I feel managing screen time has, like, without the guilt, stress, and the constant fighting has been huge for us. And that was a decision that I made. My oldest is 17 and my youngest is 3. So I have like a wide span of ages. And this has been something that I've seen in my home, in my first-hand experience, has worked for us. And I know I can't say it's going to work for everyone, but I would definitely encourage you to trust and try it before just dismissing it, because kids are so much smarter than we give them credit. And I think if you let them, you'll see they'll prove you they'll show you that they can step up and do this, if you just give them the opportunity, and it's going to create so much more balance and harmony. But so the first thing for me, I would say, is like no fear or guilt around it. So we've stopped labeling screens as bad. It's you need to trust that the kids can have a healthy relationship with their devices. They're born into a digital world. I think we need to work with it rather than against it.
Right.
And again, like what you brought up before, like energy overrules. We always focus on how do they feel when they're on their device or after. Like tune in, see if they seem agitated or fighting. Maybe that's a little bit too much. If there's happy and doing well after, then tune in and just really observe them, and also have them observe themselves, because when you teach them to trust their inner guidance, that's going to let them tune in and like build so much self-awareness as well. So I feel like really teach them to trust themselves as well, how they're feeling, but also lead by example. I feel like when I do things I love without a screen, my phone in my hand, I mean, they follow that. Again, the kids follow energy, not rules. If they see me enjoying something fun, they'll go towards that, be pulled towards that. So also like
Right.
obviously like leading by example again with that.
I know, because we're on our phones so much, right?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, we're
Yes.
consuming information. A lot of us are running our careers through our devices, and
100%.
it does confuse them when you're like, no, you can't, but
Yeah.
I can. Kind
Yeah.
of similar to, I feel, the conversation around AI right now.
Yes.
It's not going anywhere. So how can
Yeah.
I use it in smart ways to facilitate their learning and grow as individuals? I think that that's really good advice. In Sweden, you also talked about the culture of taking more risks. Why
Yeah.
is that so important for kids to safely take risks? We touched on it a little bit with kind of device and management, and
Yeah.
you have to take some risks to learn how to be an adult. Right?
Definitely. I feel like it's all about setting them up for real life, but also teaching them to like trust themselves. And you know, the only way you're going to learn to walk is like by falling down. And I feel like if it builds confidence and it builds like it's for problem solving. I mean, all the things that prepare kids for real life challenges. I feel like
Yeah.
it's so important to allow them the opportunity to set themselves up, you know, for growth. I feel like we're definitely doing them a disadvantage by protecting them or not letting them even have a go. So definitely super, super important.
And that goes on more in your upbringing, right? Just letting them take the risk, I always like replacing the phrase "be careful" with "you got this." I try to say
Yeah.
that more and more with my girls, because I
love
feel like
that.
as girls we can kind of hold back, and
Yeah.
it's so, so important.
I love that. I think that's great. That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah. More play outside, more walking to
Yes,
school,
definitely. That
less
was
fighting over device time. I love it.
exactly. I think that was the other thing. The biggest difference when we moved here was the prioritizing outdoor play, because in Sweden it's
Yeah.
like rain or shine, you're outside. It's also, you know, it's great for anxiety. I mean, there's so many benefits obviously to spending time in nature, and I feel like since I moved here I was shocked that the little tiniest amount of rain would mean like indoor recess, like there's no going
Right.
out to the playground, and kids don't even own like proper rain gear or sometimes even like proper winter jackets. So it's
Yeah.
complicated, but it's crazy to me because I feel it's so necessary for kids to spend time outdoors, and I feel like
I love that. So
we
in
never see
Sweden,
it.
they're like, put on your raincoat, we're going outside.
Yeah, there's this
The kids
saying
love
that
it.
they love it, and it's like it's just part of. I mean, it's even more fun, and it's like there's this saying like, no, there's no bad weather, only bad clothes, and that's like typical describes like the Swedish mentality, because obviously, I mean, New York gets winter too, but we, I mean, definitely we're outside
Yeah.
throughout the year and dressed for it, and you know, it's, you know, having lunch outside during winter, like you go to the forest walks in the snow, like it's not a big deal, and I feel like that's something that I really miss here, and I try to encourage with my kids to be outside more. And if I was like our school right now, I think they have like 20 or 30 minutes recess in a day, and I feel like that's so sad. So
Right.
yeah.
Me more.
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing that too. Just like the activities. We try to definitely supplement with a lot of sports and training so that we
Yeah.
can kind of balance out the academics, because it is so
Yes.
easy to feel the pressure of
Yes.
yeah, not getting the outdoor time you need and some of those other buckets that really fill your tank. And I love
Yeah.
that. There's no bad weather, there's only
Just
bad
blood
clothes.
clothes. I know that's very Swedish. So
I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
but that's the
Right.
other thing, like what you mentioned with minimal like overscheduling to actually allow for free time. That was also a big
Yes.
thing, a big difference that I found, even though that's changing in Sweden as well. But still, like less structured time
Yeah.
to allow for the balance, for the creativity, for the play. I feel that's so important to keep them like less scheduled and allow for that creativity to flow and to, you know, decrease stress and anxiety, but also just to allow time for outdoor play and like not structured play all the time.
I mean, that is making me already like de-stress when I hear like throw this
Yeah.
pencil out. Like I
Yeah.
go, I don't know if other moms can relate to that, but just
Yeah.
canceling one thing sometimes
Yes.
can feel so good.
Yeah.
Just asking yourself, like, what do I need? What do they need?
Yeah.
It's okay to have free time. So true.
Yeah, I feel like leave space for boredom because that sparks so many ideas. I feel like we just need to provide more open-ended materials for kids, just
Yeah.
time to play with blocks or art or, go outside. I feel like just kids need to lead their own play without parents watching. And I feel that that's so important to foster creativity and independence and just resilience in general.
And it's good for us too. Like
Yes.
they'll come to us when they need to loop us
Yes.
in. I know mine do.
Yes. Absolutely. We all need it. We all need this space for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I want a future cast with you. I can't, this time is flying by, but so many good tips in here that I know I'm going to carry with me. Energy over rules. I love it. What do you hope to see in the future if you could change one thing in the next 10 to 20 years here in the US?
Yeah.
What would it be?
I would say definitely would be less fear and more trust in kids.
Yeah.
I really wish that for everyone, but also I do see that we need to like collectively support parents for that to happen because everyone is so highly strung and stressed. That's the biggest difference with Sweden. Like people have a system to fall back on here, with different policies in parental leave or flexibility in the workplace. There's so many differences. So, I think that's the biggest thing that we need to focus on, like the collective support for parents. But my wish
Amen.
is, right? So,
One thing that you said in our lead up to this interview that I want our listeners to know about is you said in Sweden there is no term stay at home parent.
yeah,
Can you tell our listeners about that? Because to me, I was like, how nice
yeah, exactly.
to not label what we need
Yeah.
to do for our families or put like any negative, I guess, energy around it. But tell our listeners what that looks like in Sweden.
Yeah, well, I also have to say that the system, the whole society is just set up to support families and to support both parents to work if they choose to and if they want to, which like I would say 99% of mothers in Sweden do have
Yeah.
like work are part of the workforce because of the reason, because of the
Wow.
childcare system, because of the free or heavily subsidized childcare, because
Yeah.
of the workplace flexibility. You're able to leave the office at 4 and there's no, work in the evenings or on the weekends.
Wow.
There's parental leave for both parents, like very generous parental leave. So the whole society is set up to support both parents to work
And
and have
99% of moms are able to stay in the workforce because they
definitely.
collective care and
Yes.
help and
Yes.
structure that fits family needs
Yes.
as well so that you're able to work.
Definitely 100%. And that is the difference. Like being supported and
Yep.
seen. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Collectively, we need that the support for families to be able
Love
to do
that.
it.
In the next 10 to 20 years, we can make that happen for our kids. I know it.
I hope so. I really
How
do
can
it.
all of our listeners find you, Emma, and all of your amazing resources?
Thank you. Well, I would love to connect on Instagram. I'm at Emma Lundwall on Instagram, and I love to share tips there, and I love to connect and learn more from everyone. So yeah, I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you so much for your time.
I loved having you, Emma. I learned so much. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We
Thank
moms
you.
ate it.
Thank you so much. Right back at you.
Emma, this conversation has given me so much to think about. I love how you've challenged so many traditional parenting beliefs, especially around screens, independence, and just how we can make life easier instead of battling our kids for this endless plight for the hierarchy. It shouldn't have to be this hard. Here are my biggest takeaways from today's interview. Number one, kids don't follow rules, they follow your energy. The more we're present and engaged, the easier parenting can become. Number two, screen time isn't the enemy. It's how we frame it. We need to stop making it forbidden and teaching our kids how to use it. Number three, independence starts early. I know for me as a kid, I played outside for hours. Nobody knew where I was, and I turned out just fine. So instead of managing their every step, maybe we need to let them explore some more. Number four, parenting doesn't have to be exhausting. Sweden has built a system that prioritizes family life. Maybe there's a lesson for all of us there. I'm walking away with a totally new perspective on parenting, fixing my energy, and I hope you are too. For everyone listening, check out our blog. I always do a recap of the interview. You'll see Emma's parenting philosophy up on momshine.co, plus a list of practical ways you can implement these at your own home. Catch this interview live on YouTube at MomShine. And thank you so much for listening. If it resonated with you, share it with a mom friend, leave a review, and let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for tuning into MomShine. I'm Alicia Garibaldi, and we'll see you next time.